Hey guys, yesterday with Miss Lanning, you guys learned how to multiply the basic numbers, kind of the starting point or what everything else in the times tables relies on. So yesterday you did the zeros and ones, which are pretty easy, and then you learned about the twos, which are your doubles, and then you learned about multiplying it by tens. Today we're going to build on those and multiply by 3, by 4, by 5, and by 9. So let's go ahead and get started. I want you to follow along with me. Okay. So when we multiply by a group of 3, I want you to think of it as a group of 2 and then one more 3. So for 3 times 8, we have 2 8s, which is your double, and then you're going to add one more in. So it looks like this. 3 times 8 would be your 2 8s, your double, which you know that, is 16. Then you're just going to add one more 8, and 16 plus 8 is 24. Let's do a few together. Okay, first we have 3 times 2, which your double 2, 2 times 2 is 4, and then one more 2 is 6, and you put them together. Okay, now let's do 3 times 2. We're going to think of it as, or 3 times 3. We're going to think of it as 2 3s, which is 6, and then add one more 3. So that's a total of 3 3s, which is 3 times 3, which is 9. Okay, we're going to do 3 times 4, which is 2 4s, plus one more 4. Is 12. Then we have 3 times 5, which is 2 5s, plus one more, is 15. Let's look up here. It says 3 times 6, that's 2 6s, which is 12, one more 6, which is 18. Let's look at 3 times 7, which is 2 7s, plus one more 7, is 21. Then we have 3 times 8, 2 8s is 16, one more 8 is 24. Now look at 3 times 9, 2 9s is 18, one more 9 is 27. Now let's look at our 4. The 4s are easy. If we know our 2s, we know our 4s. We would just double them. So if I have 4 times 6, like up here, that's 4 groups of 6. So I have 4 6s. But I can think of it as, I'm going to think smarter. I'm going to think of it as 2 groups of 6 and 2 groups of 6. I know my doubles. So 2 groups of 6, 2 6s is 12, 2 more 6s is 12, and I'm going to put those together for 24. Let's do this one, 4 times 2. So I'm going to do 2 groups of 2 and 2 groups of 2. I'm going to break, instead of doing 4 groups of 2, I do 2 and 2. So 2 groups of 2 is 4, 2 groups of 2 is 4, and I get 8. So we have 4 times 3. I know 2 groups of 3, 2 groups of 3, add them together and I get 12. So I have 4 times 4, which is 4 groups of 4, but I'm going to think of it as 2 groups of 4 plus 2 groups of 4. Now 4 groups of 5, 4 times 5 would be just 2 groups of 5 plus 2 groups of 5, would be 20. We're going to move through the rest of our 4s. Since we know our doubles, this seems pretty easy to us. So 4 times 6 would be 2 groups of 6, 2 groups of 6, 24. 4 times 7 is 2 groups of 7 plus 2 groups of 7 is 28. Remember, if we know our doubles, we know our 2s, this is easy. 4 times 8 is 2 groups of 8, 2 groups of 8 equals 32. And 4 groups of 9, or 4 times 9 is 2 groups of 9 plus 2 groups of 9 equals 36. Okay. Let's do our 5s. Okay. We're going to think smarter, not harder. And 5 times 8 is 5 groups of 8, or 5 8s. Okay. I'm going to think smarter because I know that I can also count by 5 8 times. So I would also think, I know my 10s. We did that yesterday. And 5 is half of 10. So your answer for 5 times 8 is just half of 10 times 8. Just half as much. So if I know 5 times 8, I know that 10 times 8 is 80. Well, half of that is 40. Let's do some together. 5 times 2. Think 10 times 2 is 20. I know that. Half of that is 10. So 5 times 2 is 10. Let's think of 5 times 3. Well, I know 10 times 3 is 30. Ooh, let's go up here and do the 5 times 6 first. Okay, I know that 10 times 6 is 60, and so half of that is 30. Now the 5 times 3, I knew 10 times 3 is 30. Half of 30 is 15. Okay. Remember, you can always count up by 5s. So I'd be 5 times 3 is the same thing as 5, 10, 15. Okay. Next, I know that 5 times 7, 10 times 7 is 70. Half of 70 is 35. Next, I have 5 times 4. 10 times 4 is 40. Half of 40 is 20. We're going to go a little bit quicker. 5 times 8, I know 10 times 8 is 80. Half is 40. 5 times 5, I think 10 times 5, you know your tens, 50. Half of 50, think of half of 50 of 50 cents. Half of 50 cents would be 25 cents. Okay, now I have 5 times 9, think 10 times 9, 90. Half of 90 is 45. Remember, when you multiply by 5s, it's always going to end in either a 0, if you look right here, 0, or a 5. Last today, let's multiply by 9s. Okay, we're going to use that 10 fact again because in the 10 fact, it's just one more group. So we're starting with 9 groups of 7. We're going to think smarter and think 10 groups of 7. It's just one more 7, and then we're going to go backwards 7. So in 9 times 7, okay, let's look at that picture. That's really just 10, but take 1 away. Okay, so 9 times 7, I'm going to think 10 times 7. And then go backwards 7, which gives me 63. So 9 times 2, I'm going to think 10 times 2, and go back 2, gives me 18. Okay. Next I have 9 times 3, think 30, 10 times 3, minus 3, 1 more 3, gives me 27. So if you notice, I'm going back by this number, the one more group of this number. Okay, so 9 times 4, I'm thinking 10 times 4. Okay, take away a 4. And I get 36. 9 times 5, I'm thinking 10 times 5. Go backwards 1 5, get 45. 9 times 6, we're going to think that should be 60. And I'm going to, it should be 60, go back 1 6, and I get 54. Okay, I apologize for that. So let's think of 9 times 7. Well, 10 times 7 is 70. Go back a 7, 63. And that's just like our example, the Think Smarter example. Now 9 times 8, I think 10 times 8, go back an 8, you get 72. Finally, we have 9 times 9. I think 10 times 9, go back a 9, and I get 81. Today you are going to do some practice by yourself. Remember, think smarter, not harder.